We are ranking the UFC weight classes from worst to best, and stay till the end because you guys might agree or you might disagree with my final rankings. But anyways, we're going to hop right into it. And coming in at the 11 through 9 spot is all three of the UFC women's weight classes. And this is nothing against the women, it's just the viewership shows and the fans show that these are the least favorite weight classes. These are not the most watchable fights. The women are just, they've gotten into MMA recently compared to the men, so they are obviously just not going to be as skilled as them yet. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I have them as my 11 through 9. Some quick notes: Amanda Nunes' return would be huge. We could see some super fights with her coming back. Zhang Weili just had a great title defense against Tatiana Suarez. And Kayla Harrison is more jacked than Sean O'Malley. So those are three of the biggest reasons why people are watching women's MMA. And we're not going to spend too much time on it, but we're going to get into the next classes. At number 8, we have flyweight. And I know you guys are going to hate on this and be like, they're the most skilled, yada, yada, yada. Yes, they are very skilled. These rankings are based off of skill, popularity, watchability, and the health of the division overall. So what's hurting the flyweights? We have Pantoja double lapping the division, which is impressive for himself, and he might even move up. However, this kind of eliminates any other contenders as he's already beat anybody, so that kind of ruins the hype of any other possible matchups at the moment. You have Kai Asakura getting exposed immediately. He came to the UFC, they gave him a flyweight championship match, which was the most hyped up flyweight fight in a minute, but then he lost, and it just wasn't that close of a fight, so that ruins that hype. And there's no stars. Like, you don't have any superstars in here like an O'Malley, a Khamzat, a Makhachev, a McGregor, a Jon Jones. You don't have any of those. You have Pantoja, who the hardcore fans recognize as great. Casuals might not even know who Pantoja is. And these guys being smaller than the other weight classes also hurts the fights. And that's not really a fair criticism because these guys do have a lot of skill, but they're not producing these crazy knockouts like the big guys are. Or when they do produce the knockouts, it's not this big thudding punch. So people just naturally aren't as interested in it. At number 7, we have the welterweight. And sorry, bedtime MMA, but I have Belal as a boring champ. And I know he's not as boring as a lot of people make him out to be. He's not like a Mario Batista level of boring, but he is not the most entertaining fighting style. He's not knocking anybody out, and he's just not a star. And that's a problem when you have a weight class and the champion is not a star, because the champion is supposed to be the biggest star in the division. And Belal Muhammad is just quite far from that margin, and he's not even close. And then we had two other contenders coming up. One was Ian Gary, who was 15-0 or 14-0 at the time, and he lost to Shavkat, so that ruined a lot of his hype. He's still hyped and has a good future, but he's not this undefeated prospect like he once was. And Shavkat won that fight, but in doing so, he exposed himself and took out a lot of his hype. That's right, he's 18-0, or maybe 19 now, and he beat another undefeated good prospect, and he lost hype. Now make that make sense, right? How is that happening? Well, Ian Gary took the opponent on short notice, and so did Shavkat. But Shavkat was the favorite going into this. You know, Ian Gary's big advantage is his reach, and he plays that range. Well, Shavkat's also a very rangy and big guy, and all he could do against Ian Gary was hold him up against the cage and almost got choked out by Ian Gary. And Ian Gary is not a submission artist in the slightest, and he almost choked Shavkat out. So I don't have much confidence in Shavkat fighting Belal Muhammad. I do think Belal wins that fight, and that just ruins a lot of Shavkat's hype. Alright, at number 6 we have bantamweight. And here's the problem, is the only superstar in the division was Sean O'Malley, and he got absolutely exposed by Merab Dvalishvili. And now that we see Merab's fight against Umar Nurmagomedov, I think that ruins a lot of people's hype for O'Malley, because if Umar can't even get close to beating Merab like that, I don't think Sean's getting relatively close to winning the championship back, as long as Merab or Umar in the division. And so Merab is champion, and he's a funny guy. It's funny on the mic when he crashes out. It's funny when he trolls in the octagon, right? But he's just not an entertaining fighter. It's entertaining when he trolls, but outside of the trolling, which is going to make up the majority of the 25 minutes of a fight, is he's just shooting failed takedown attempts and not finishing people. He's going to decisions, and that's just another reason why it's really killing the bantamweight division. On top of that, he is lapping the whole division. So we don't have any hype prospects coming up in here, and that's just ruining a lot of hype for this division. At 5, we have featherweight, and we're in the top 5 now, so we're getting to the really good divisions in the UFC, and people would think I would have featherweight higher. However, there's a big problem, and that is Ilia Topuria wanting to move up. Dana White and other people aren't fully shutting this down. I do believe he's going to fight Volk at UFC 314. I've made a video on that if you guys haven't watched it yet. But if Ilia Topuria moves up, this kind of sets fire to the whole division, and that is because Max Holloway is already moved up to 155. Volk is coming off 2 knockout losses, so a lot of Volk's hype and aura is gone. So if Ilia and Max move up, Volk coming off 2 KOs, you're left with Diego Lopez, who has the worst haircut I've ever seen. You can't have someone with that haircut be champ. He's got to get it cut first, and then you can go get the belt. It's either him or you have Movsar Evloev, who is a boring fighter, who all he does, he's a control time merchant. Nobody's out here saying, oh, I can't wait for the Movsar Evloev fight this weekend. Like, no, that is a bathroom break fight. And Ilia is an absolute superstar. I think the best thing for him would be to stay here, defend against Volk, and then beat Diego Lopez and Movsar. Build up a great resume. Let some other prospects build up in featherweight and stars be born. And then he could move up to lightweight. But if Ilia moves up, that really just cooks this division. And by him showing this interest this early on, it's going to likely eventually happen. At number 4, we have heavyweight. And why is 4 so high? People are like, oh, the heavyweights are so blobby and slow and sloppy. It's not real good fighting. Well, in all fighting, heavyweight is always hyped up. And it's like it was with Mike Tyson. Like, you have these big dudes who could just knock each other out with any punch. And it's entertaining to watch. A heavyweight fight between 2 no-name heavyweights is more entertaining than a flyweight fight between 2 no-name flyweights. And that's just how it is. And it's not fair. There's nothing they can do to control. It's just because these guys are 150 pounds bigger than the flyweights, right? But some other reasons why heavyweight is all the way up at number 4 is because the GOAT, Jon Jones, is still fighting. If he's not the GOAT, he's in your top 2 or 3. And by him still fighting and going on this GOAT run is bringing hype to the heavyweight division no matter what. And on top of that, the heavyweight division can put on the best fight in UFC history. Now, maybe not best fight, but one of the most hyped up fights for sure. We've had 2 heavyweight champions for over a year now, and the hype that is naturally built into this by Jon Jones ducking, trolling the media, Aspinall waiting, calling him out, dressing up as a duck. This hype is so high right now, and it is at number 4 for the potential for this matchup to happen, and this matchup needs to happen. The UFC cannot afford to fumble another big matchup like this. And then on top of all that, Volkov now has cornrows. Alright, and we go to light heavyweight, and I know we got some funny pictures here, guys. Just stay tuned with me. Jamal Hill, if you see this, dude, man, it's all jokes. But anyways, Alex Pereira is on a historic run. His whole lightweight journey has been in the past year. All these wins he's had, he's stacking up a GOAT resume. People are talking about him in top 10, top 5 of all time talks already. And that's all because of what he's been able to do in the last year in this lightweight division. He's fully restored this division. Before that, this division would be near the bottom of the list. But he's come in. He is a superstar. He is the biggest star in the UFC right now. And he's going on this crazy run. He has a crazy fan base. He's destroying these guys in the ring. His knockouts, his wins are all knockouts. He's not going to boring decisions. He's knocking your lights off and putting you out cold. There's no judges needed when Alex Pereira is fighting. And on top of that, the light heavyweight division has the biggest heel in MMA in any organization right now in Jamal Hill. People love to hate on Jamal Hill, but honestly, this guy is great for the UFC. If you have a promotion of all good guys who you like everyone and they're all fighting for each other, you know, you're just hoping for a good fight. You like everyone. You hate to see people lose. But when you got a heel in the division, it really sparks some rivalries and gets the fans real interested. They're wanting to see him lose. You know, it's creating big tension before the matches, and this is good for UFC. It's good for viewers. It's all around great for everyone. And then on top of that, we have a good Dagestani contender, which is good for every division. You know, we have Khabib, we have Makhachev. Well, here we have Big Ank, as he's called. We have Magomed Ankalaev, who's a really valid contender, and it's kind of looked like Pereira's been ducking him for the last year and is finally fighting him during Ramadan, which I've made a video breaking that down if you guys want to go check that out. But him being the contender and having the next fight creates a lot more hype for this division as well. So light heavyweight is all the way up at number 3. If you asked me a year and a half ago, it might have been like 7 or 8. At number 2, this is the hot take. We have lightweight at number 2. This is the first year in the past decade the lightweight has not been the #1 division in the UFC, and it is for a couple of reasons, right? Now, being 2 is no jab. It's not putting you down. That's the second best MMA division in the world, right? And if you look at this list, you have Sarukian, Benoit, Jalen Turner. I'm not going to name all the names, but you got Oliveira, Makhachev. You got stars. That doesn't even name Poirier, Chandler, Gaethje. You know, it's filled with stars. It's always been filled with stars since McGregor and Khabib. Like, this division is sick. However, why it's not #1 is because if you look at this, a lot of these stars are older, like Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje. These guys are all on the brink of retirement. Makhachev is on the brink of moving up to welterweight. Yes, you heard that first. He is not going to fight Ilia Topuria. He's moving up to welterweight. I made a video on that if you guys want to check that out as well. And this division will still have stars. It has Paddy Pimblett. It has Jalen Turner, Moicano, Benoit Saint Denis. Like, it's still going to be good. It's probably still going to stay as the #2 division, maybe #3 or 4, depending on where everyone moves. You know, Sarukian's still really young, but all the top heavy stars are moving out of it. It's still going to be strong, but it cannot compete with my #1 weight class in the UFC right now. And if you haven't figured it out, middleweight. And why is middleweight #1? Well, just like lightweight, middleweight is absolutely filled with stars. But on top of that, we have some added bonuses, right? So their stars are not aging out. Their stars are still in their prime and still fighting. Adesanya looks like he's leaving his prime, but he's still of prime age and still has good fights left in the UFC. Strickland and Dricus DuPlessis are both in their prime still. Khamzat is coming into his prime. Bo Nickel is a surging contender. And then you have other fighters like Whitaker, Cannonier, etc., etc. Paulo Costa, who's another entertaining guy. But you have great rivalries here between the triangle of DDP, Strickland, and Adesanya. And then when you throw Khamzat into that, who's beefing with all of them, Khamzat is the most hyped up contender we've had in years. He talks trash, or at least used to. He has an entertaining style, how he just goes out there and mauls people, and he is coming for that belt, and that is really a huge factor in why this division is so hyped. You have so many different great fights you could put on between those 4 guys. You got Bo Nickel coming up, building his hype up. He has a good fan base. There's just so much room for growth with this division and so many good fights to put on that it is absolutely the #1 division in the UFC today. But let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my rankings? Do you not agree with my rankings? What I get right, what I get wrong? If you enjoyed the video and made it this far, consider leaving a sub. Helps the channel out. We're almost at 600 subs, so the more you the sub, the better. But I appreciate you guys stopping in and checking this video out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Doses.